emerald light cloaked her. It wasn't just a cloak or the background. She was the emerald, and it swirled and trailed from her fingers and her horns like a sentient mist. The blood of trees ran in her veins. Her breath misted like a stag's on a cold morning, curling and wisping. Her hands were the gnarled roots of the ancient forest, given form and uprooted. Her hooves were of a stag. Her horns were those of a young stag. Her skin was velvet fur, ripped and torn, bleeding, revealing a pale human skin within. Colours were different to him. Dimensions were different. But he could see her as a human could not. Terrifying. A fragile shell spilling over, containing so much power. She turned and looked at him, and Wenlock was terrified. She smiled and held out her hand. Wenlock blinked. "Mistress," he gasped, snug in his burrow, his eyes wide shut. She beckoned, and Wenlock took a step towards her. Wenlock froze. He was no longer in the burrow. He had taken a step closer to her. He was on the edge of the crossroads. She had drawn him through the realms, through the world. "Mistress," he sank to one knee, bowing his head. "Wenlock." Her voice was somewhere between a purr and a sibilant hiss. I thought I sensed one of the old kin. The old ways remain. Wenlock didn't answer. His clan, his people, were few and scattered. Their ways of passage were not the humans, but Kernow, the god of the forest, the stag daughter of the old Ænglish. She was god, creator and destroyer, hunter and hunted. She was the absolute. "Wenlock," she purred, "do you like my hooded?" He nodded hastily. "They terrify you," she laughed. "They are meant to terrify you, as you terrify them. They are the hooded," and her voice rumbled with power, and Wenlock broke into a sweat. He could feel creatures, small and invisible, fleeing all directions from her. "Oh, Wenlock!" and her voice dripped with joy. He felt a heat the like of which nothing had ever come close to before. "I am glad you are here." "Me?" He stumbled over the words, not raising his head. "You," her voice rumbled, and somewhere, not far, a Notre Dame collapsed and a cave roof crashed down. They challenge me on all fronts. The fictitious Christ to the east. There is no one in the halfway lands. But Ulra and Woden challenge me, and the Normans kill my people. A great oak collapsed, all its energy, its life force, drained by her fury. "From the dark," she enunciated, each syllable a stone dropped into a bottomless dark pool. "Come the hooded, but they are not enough." She sank down, thrusting both hands into the roadway. She lowered her head, her back arching. The stones ripped apart. Earth tore itself out to the ground. The road cracked. The emerald swirled around her, plunging in pulsating waves into the ground. Wenlock shuffled, struggling to keep his balance as the very ground ruptured before him. "Of wolf and stag," she howled. "Wolf stag." She flung her head back. Blood trailed from her eyes, dripped from her lips. "Wolf and stag, I summon you." The world exploded into colour. Wenlock fell over, blinded. All was quiet. All was still. There was a smell of rotten meat in his nostrils. Wenlock opened his eyes, but his eyes refused to accept what they saw. He blinked, moved his hands slowly. A creature stood over him, much, much larger than him, the height of a stag, but not a stag. A wolf. He rubbed his eyes. Sleek, silver-grey fur. an immense body, eyes of the brightest, most vicious green, and a head crowned with stag's horns. He swallowed carefully, easing into a seated position slowly. Mistress? He blinked. He turned his head. Cairn was sprawled limply, a bundle of fur and horn, hooves and human flesh, trickling blood. He shifted over carefully, padding towards her. The creature tracked him with a knowing gaze, but didn't move. Wenlock touched the throat of Cernunnos' stag-daughter. Life beat within, slow and sluggish. "Cairn," he whispered. "Mistress?" She blinked, and the emerald blazed in her eyes, bewitching, enchanting, terrifying. She sat up and he moved back automatically. The creature padded over, sinking onto its paws. Cairn buried her face in the creature's glossy fur. She stretched out bloodied hands, stroking the creature's flanks. Wolfen stag," she murmured. "You came." It lowered its head, licking her bloodied face tenderly. After a few moments, she turned to look at him. "You are tired, Wenlock, child mine. Return to your burrow." The earth was surrounding him once again, and he was in a safe, secure place, held snug within the ground. He closed his eyes, tired, drained, but exalted.